Hi, okay, welcome to session 6. We're going to be looking at some mixed style questions, some questions that we're starting to see come up a little bit more regularly in our exam. So definitely one that we want to target. First of all, though, we have our recap. So I'd like you to hit pause and have a go at those. Remember, you can look things up. It's not a memory test. And then hit play when you're ready for the answers. Okay, those are your answers. All right, so if you just pause, do your marking, and then when you're ready, hit play, and we will go on to today's session. So mixed percent, fraction, and ratio, if you can say it, questions. So this is the type of thing that we're starting to see. The ratio isn't in this one. I'm going to kind of build us up. These questions are varied. Okay, I can't just say it will look like this. So I'm trying to bring that variety into our practice within this session. So yeah, it's not literally this is how you do it, and then you get loads of questions that look the same. So you are going to have to be thinking all the time on these questions. Okay, we're going to get stuck straight in with our first example. So Kirsty earns £420 a week and spends 35% on food. A third goes on household bills and she saves the rest. How much does she save? So this question has a fraction of an amount in it and a percentage of an amount in it. So I'm going to be working on one thing at a time. The one thing that these questions do well is kind of walk us through what we need to do. So we get given a piece of information, and then the very first line, there's a piece of maths we can do. So you could almost crack straight on with that, not worry about the rest of the question until you're ready. So let's have a little look. If I've got to find 35% of something, okay, 35% means out of 100. And I want to find that of 420. Now, if this is on a calculator exam, which the majority of the questions are, then you can just pop that straight in your calculator and you will get your answer. Okay, so the answer is 147. And we're going to use a calculator throughout. If it isn't on a calculator paper, this is just something that you will need to work through by hand. Please remember that just writing that can be a mark in your exam because you're showing the examiner you understand how to find the percentage of an amount. Okay. And then if you've done that, so let's just clear that off, and you have to do it by hand, just times by the top, straight into your Chinese method, and then you divide by 100, which remember is just boom, boom, in 2 places when you divide by 100. So it's very doable by hand. It just takes a little bit more time, that's all. So I have just found that she spends 147 on food. So you could either pop that information up by the side of the question, or you could do a bit of labeling here. This is such a good idea, especially if you're somebody that gets a little bit lost. You've done a lot of maths. It's all over the page and you can't quite work out what to do next. These are like really nice tags. They keep you, keep your eye on what's going on, which is quite a nice thing to do. So the next part of this question is a third goes on the household bills. So a third of 420 is what I need to find next. Remember, that can just go in a calculator or you divide by the bottom times by the top. So this one was a little bit easier to work through, just dividing through by 3. And that's going to give you 140. She saves the rest. Well, I need to know what that is. So what actually does she have left over? So I'm going to be doing 147 plus 140, which is 287. I'm going to take my 420, take off what she's already spent, and I've got 133. Remember, we can use a calculator throughout. So how much does she save? £133. So that's just using our basic percentages and fractions of an amount. This was all covered in the grade 3. And I would imagine studying grade 4, you'd be fairly comfortable and confident with that piece of maths. All right, our next question is, let's pull up a little bit more. So we've got 600 counters in a bag. 5/12 are green, 20% are blue, and the rest are yellow. And you've got to work out the ratio of green, blue, and yellow counters, and then give your answer in its simplest form. So this is a fractional amount and a percentage amount. We've just done that. And then you've got to think about how you're going to pull that ratio together as a final answer. Now, I want you to hit pause and I want you to get as far as you can with this question and then press play when you're ready. Okay, so we have to work out 5/12 of 600. Now remember that of means times. If we're doing it by hand, dividing by the bottom, timesing by the top, or we're not in this case, straight in the calculator, you've got 250 green. And you could pop it up there if you wanted as well. 20%, so 20% of 600 is 120. So I've got 120 that are blue and the rest are yellow. So 250 plus 120 is 370. 600, take 370 is 230. So the rest, that's the yellow, 230. So I've then got to put these in the ratio of green, blue, and yellow. So there's 250 green, 120 blue, and 230 yellow. Well, straight away, I can just divide the whole thing by 10, which is going to give me 25.12.23. I would then look to see if there's another times table that goes into all three. If there is, I will use it. But actually, I know 23 is a prime number. And for that reason, I'm not going to look any deeper because there won't be anything that will fit into that. So that is the answer to that question. If you managed to get it all the way to that answer, really, really well done. Hopefully you were fine here because that was pretty much the same as the first question, wasn't it? Okay, here is our next question. So we've got our fraction, our percentage. We've actually got a ratio in this question as well. I want you to read through it and have a go, get as far as you can, even if it means that you get a little bit stuck halfway through and then have to come and press play. That's fine. Just have a go. And when you're ready, press play. Okay, so we've got to find 3/8 of 320. So pop that in your calculator and you've got 120. So 120 on the food. 30%, so 30 over 100 times 320. And that is going to give us 96 on the bills. So we've got 96 on the bills there. Okay, the rest, right? Well, let's just get straight into that. I don't even know what the rest is. So let's work it out. We've got 120 plus 96, which is equal to 216. 320, take off the 216, will give us 104. So that's the rest. Now that's being saved into either a Christmas fund or an emergency fund in the ratio of 3:5. So I've got my Christmas, my emergency, 3:5. I always write my ratios with a label wherever possible. So I'm really clear about what's going on. Now I need to work out how much of that wage is going into the Christmas fund. So how much of the 104 is going to be in the Christmas column? So I've got a total of 104. So I need the invisible column with 104 in it. Before I write my 104, I'm going to put the total of this row. So the total of the ratio is 8. 104 is in the question. How do I get from 8 to 104? I times by 13. Do the same this side. Now, I'm actually only interested in the Christmas fund. So I'm only interested in that column. So to finish this off, I'm going to be doing 3 times 13, which is 39. So he saves £39 in the Christmas fund out of his wages. Okay, so again, this here, the invisible column method for ratio, that was all done in detail in grade 3. If this is unfamiliar, then obviously we will see it through some more examples. There is a quick how-to help video on YouTube as well. You could always go and have a look at that to see if there's any additional detail to the method that's useful there. But yeah, again, because we're in the grade 4 course, these basic skills are kind of assumed knowledge. Like I say, we will see it a little bit more before you go into practice. So it will hopefully help if you're a little unsure. All right. A bag contains 84 counters. There are red, blue, and green counters. A quarter of the counters are blue. The remaining counters are divided between red and green in the ratio 2 to 5. How many green counters are there? So again, a very similar question. This one doesn't actually have a percentage in it, but it's got everything else. So we've seen this all before. It's just pulling it together with this story and these numbers. So hit pause and press play when you are ready. Okay, so I've got to find a quarter of 84. So that's just a case of dividing 3 by 4, which is 21. So a quarter are blue. Now, the remaining counters are going to get divided between red and green. So red and green in the ratio 2 to 5. So obviously I need to know the remaining counters. So 84, take away the 21, and we've got 63. So 84, take away our 21, and we've got 63. So into the invisible column. The invisible column, just in case is a little unfamiliar, is basically a column where we do our workings out. It's where the numbers go when they don't fit here. So that's 63 counters. It's not 63 red counters, so it can't live there. And it's not 63 green counters, so it can't live there. It has to live in its own column. So we create it, we call it like the invisible column. And it's going to be a total column because it's a total of 63 that I'm going to be sharing in that ratio. But equally, I need to know the total of those ratios, which is 7. I've only say how many 7s are in 63? What do I times 7 by to make 63? Something along those lines so that I can see how they're connected. And then I do the same on this side. So I will be timesing by 9. The question itself says how many green counters are there. So I'm really only worried about that column there. So to finish it off, it's 5 times 9. What happened to my 5? There it is. 5 times 9, which is equal to 45. So there are 45 green counters. Okay, so on to our next question. So there we go. I'm just going to clean off the top bit here so it doesn't distract us at all. There we go. So this one is very different. I've included it because this type of question is creeping in more and more. And if we're not confident how our fractions and our ratios are linked, then we are going to struggle a little bit with this type of question. So that's why it's here. We are going to just go through this, all right? So Gavin shares some money between himself and his sister. So the first thing that's off-putting is we don't know how much, and we feel often that that's important. But when we keep reading, he goes on to say he gives his sister a quarter. And then we've got to represent the money shared as a ratio. So we don't actually have to represent the money itself. So let's just think about what he's telling us. He gives his sister a quarter. So if his sister has a quarter, okay, then Gavin must have 3/4. The whole amount, however big or small it is, it's going to get shared out between them, where the sister gets a quarter and he gets 3/4. So let's look at this just as a diagram quickly so we can get a really good feel for what is happening here. Okay, so there's my quarters. There's the sister getting 1 and Gavin getting 3. And you can see that there's 1 out of the 4 to the sister, 3 out of the 4 to Gavin. So that picture is helping us see the fractions that are going on. But, and I'm going to colour it in to really help it stand out. There's the sister and there's Gavin. And hopefully, if we were to now think about this as a ratio, you could see that the sister is getting 1 and Gavin is getting 3. Now it's the numerator of our fraction, 1 and 3, that's created that ratio. And it's absolutely true every time. That is the link between fractions and ratios. So I'm just going to do a completely separate question. So hopefully 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 sections there. So if I was to have 3 of those sections blue and 4 of those sections green, again, if we look at the fraction, I've got 3 out of 7 squares blue and 4 out of 7 squares green, and you can clearly see the ratio is 3:4. So that numerator for the denominator really is the ratio as well. Okay, so they are linked in that way, a really great piece of knowledge. I think when we're learning about our ratios and our fractions, they're always taught separately. You know, here's our lesson on ratios, and then and the links are lost. Often they're lost. So it's really, really important that we're aware of that. Now, one last thing before we move away from this question, we've got to represent the money shared as a ratio between Gavin and his sister. So it's really, really important that I'm writing Gavin's value and then his sister's. So here, whilst we were talking about it, because the sister was first in the diagram, I wrote the sister first in the ratio. Well, I couldn't give that as an answer. That would lose me a mark, because in the question, it clearly says Gavin first. So his number needs to go first. So I would be writing 3.1 as a final answer for that style of question. Okay, so we have a set of questions. I will disappear so that it's easy for you to see them all. I'm going to do the normal thing. I'm just going to scroll through and you know, slowly show you the questions. I'll do the same with the answers, and then I will see you next session. So well done today.